Hey everybody, it's Rob back again this week with, surprise surprise, another video dealing with Savage Worlds, which has clearly become hands down my favorite role-playing system. So a while back I did a video about the new edition of Savage Worlds coming out and the Savage Worlds Essential box set that they sold separately from the rulebook. And all of the stuff that was in it, and what you could use, and what you might want, and certain things in it that were kind of must-haves. Not that you have to have that box set, but you might want to find something to use as bennies if you don't want to buy the box set and get the bennies that come in it. This is the box set, and it's a big boy. Yeah, and it's heavy. And it's $149.99 retail, and it comes with a lot of stuff in it. I'm going to read through the contents real quick just as kind of a recap of everything that comes in this, because I know 150 bucks sounds like a lot, and it is. And again, this is not a must-have. It is for somebody like me. I had to have it. But a lot of the stuff that comes in this you can use other things. However, the quality of everything that came in it was absolutely phenomenal. And like I said, I'm going to go over the contents again, but there's one item in particular that we're going to talk about this evening, or this morning, or whenever you're watching the video. To each his own. So the contents come with a 96-page World Builder's Guide, a trifold landscape GM screen, 48-page mini setting book, oversized action deck, an adventure deck, a deck of power cards, those are great, a deck of status cards, dice set with 4 custom wall dice, 25 bennies, acrylic cone and blast templates, combat quick reference chart, chase quick reference chart, die cut status tokens, 5 power and ammo tracker dials, Red in the Rain poster, and bookmarks. The Red in the Rain poster is, if I get the glare off of it, the full-size poster, well, it's not a full-size poster, but it's a little bigger than the box, but about twice as big as the box of this picture. And I have it up on my wall. You can't see it, it's off camera, but it's a really cool cyberpunk-looking poster. So there's a lot of really cool stuff that comes in that box, most of which you can buy separately if you want to. You don't have to buy the $150 box if there's only a couple of things in there that you're going to use. Now, like I said in my other video, when I went through the box, some of the stuff I kind of initially went, I don't know if I'll use this or not. Most of it I have found that I do use. There are a couple of things that I'm still kind of about, like the mini settings book that comes in it. It's just a book with 4 mini settings that are very different, each one written by a different author. Spirits of 1786 by Matthew Cutter, Abyssal by Shane Hensley, Tesla Rangers by Cheyenne Wright, and Lost City of Estella by B.J. Hensley. And each one is literally what it says. It's a miniature setting with some light rule changes for characters in that setting. And I will say it's kind of neat because it does. They have a list of monsters for each particular setting that are not straight out of the main book. They're exclusive to this book. So if you do get it, and I think you can only get this book if you buy the box set. I don't think you can get it on the website. I could be wrong. Maybe you can download a PDF. But it has more monsters, and more monsters is always good. That is the one place that I think Savage Worlds falls a little short, is they don't have a dedicated just monster manual type book. Granted, they have a whole slew of monsters in their main core rule book, and the setting books that come out always have monsters in them, and one sheets tend to have monster stats on them, and so on and so forth. But it would be nice to have a nice big book of collected monsters from across the settings, across their own megaverse or connected universes, if you will. And it has nice rules in there that are very easy for building your own monster. So if there's not stats for a monster you want, you can put it together pretty quick. However, just to be able to flip to something on the fly like you do with a monster manual for D&D or Pathfinder as bestiaries, I think would be really nice. None of the mini settings in here really jumped out at me. I think they're well written, but they're not something I would necessarily use, except for what they're designed for, and that is, you know, if you have a down night where part of your group can't get together and the other part can, and you just want something kind of a one-shot type thing to play, you could pick one of these four, and in just a few minutes you're up and running with an adventure to play with the people who did make it a game night. So I mean, that's it's okay. The one product, and I have talked about a lot of the products from that box, but the one product that I'm going to talk about tonight is the World Builder and Game Master Guide that came in it. Now this you can buy separately. It's a paperback. It's $19.99 retail off their website. You might be able to get it a little cheaper if you can find it on Amazon or online, eBay or something. When I pulled it out, I'm not going to lie, I pulled it out and I went, a little Game Master Guide. I don't know that I really need that. I mean, when you've been doing this as long as I have, and I've been doing it for, you know, a bunch of years, you end up reading a lot of Dungeon Master guides, Game Master guides, and a lot of them kind of have the same old stuff in them. And I'm not saying they're not good. I actually think the ones by Pathfinder are phenomenal for that system. But they also are filled with charts and magic items and more charts and more magic items and things for building your world and all kinds of charts for that, which is kind of what I expected this to be, only a lot smaller. I mean, it's only 96 pages. So it actually sat on the shelf for a while, and I didn't take it out until about maybe 2-3 weeks ago and start looking through it. And I found that it was not what I thought it was. So it is a World Builder Game Master's Guide, but not in the same sense as the ones you would find from a Dungeon Master's Guide from D&D or a Game Master Guide from Pathfinder or any of these other games that have those. This is literally a collection of essays, basically, that are written by different people who work for Pinnacle or who have written stuff for Pinnacle, freelance writers, so on and so forth. There's very little in the way of any kind of chart or mechanics or anything in here. The majority of what's in here is an essay on, look, this is how I do this. Try to implement these things in your game. Try to think about your world building in certain ways. And I gotta say, I was pretty impressed with most of it. You have, well, I mean, it starts out with world building, and it talks about, the name of your world, genre, the mixing genres, your world map, heroes, races, new edges, new hindrances, not adding new ones, but like how to make up your own if you wanted to add them in there, converting different settings to Savage Worlds. And one very important aspect of this article, this first one in here, is plot point campaigns. Plot point campaigns are a staple of the Savage Worlds gaming, and I've actually been doing this for a very long time. I just called it something else, and I just called it bullet pointing. And what it is they give you a very good description of how to do it in here for you have an overarching for a plot point campaign, and there's nothing mechanical about this that ties it to Savage Worlds. You can use this for any role-playing game. Basically, as the GM, you're going to sit down, you're going to plot out your campaign. You're going to take a piece of paper and go, okay, well, I want my overarching story to start here, go through this, and then end here. Like, this is the main story that's going on in the background. And then your game sessions take place within those plot points. And each game session is broken into a beginning, a middle, and an end. And you can make it as long as you want or as short as you want. But basically, with each one, you're going to write out, session 1, the beginning, this happens to bring characters together. The middle, this is the climax that shows the hook and gets everybody started. And then the end is how you resolve that particular part of the story. And then you do another one. And they're kind of like building your own little one-sheets for each night of adventure. But it gives you a really good description and layout in the book on how to do it. How to build each one of the format for how to build each one of your adventures within the plot point campaign. And it's not very hard. It's very simple the way it's set up. It is the way I have run games for a very long time. And I can't stress enough that any game master worth their salt is going to prepare. Be prepared. Know where your game is going. I talked about this in my Diablo video. Know where your campaign is going. No, you can't. You don't want to script out every little thing between the beginning and the end. You just want to bullet point or plot point particular events throughout the campaign and let your players' actions fill in the campaign as you're going through it. And number one, if you tried to write everything out for a very long campaign, it would take a very long time to do. But if you're just playing weekly with your same group of players, you very quickly are going to find that they're going to do a lot of the work for you by being the adventurers and grabbing onto the adventure hooks and taking the story and running with it. Or murder hobo. Who knows? So, but anyway, I thought it was really nice that they did a layout for that in there, because they talk about plot point campaigns in the rule book, but they don't go into a whole lot of detail about it. There's information you can find online about it for free. And if you just want to take a look at that, I highly suggest it. It's a great way to plot out and build a campaign. Yes, there are some games or some GMs that are really good at just running everything on the fly. But when you run everything on the fly, you run a very big risk of having what I call the lost scenario. And that is like the show Lost. If you ever watch that, I swear every week it just seemed like they were throwing darts at a dartboard and just adding crazy shit in that they never were able to completely tie everything together to make sense. If you plot everything out ahead of time, then you know how to make everything make sense, because you know where the story's headed. If you're making it up week to week, hey, maybe you get lucky. Maybe everything ties together. But more often than not, in my experience, you don't. So if you're going to be a game master, then put in the little bit of effort and time to plan your adventures and plot point your campaign. The next chapter in the book, or the next essay in the book, is by Jody Black, and this one I found really useful. I really enjoyed reading this. It's called Savage Worlds for All Ages, and it is a set of guidelines, basically, for different age brackets and ways to tweak the game and tweak the rules so that the game is accessible for kids all the way to elderly people. And that's really useful, because not Though Savage Worlds is not a hard system, especially for a group of adults who sit down to play. But if you take a bunch of 10 and 11-year-old kids, which is what I'm about to do, it can be a little overwhelming if they've never done this kind of thing before. So part of the advice that she gives in each age bracket is whether to use the rules as written, or here are some options for things to change to make the game easier and more accessible. And I found it really useful. Like giving bennies for manners with kids is really great. But each section has its own thing on game prep and game mastering and how to handle it. And even a cool pic of some kids playing. But it has different groups, like the young readers, ages 6 to 11. And a couple of pages on that. Then you have the age of discovery, age 11 to 15, which is the age bracket for my younger children. And we're, I think, next week starting a Savage Worlds game. They're looking really, really forward to it. We're just going to do a basic fantasy game. I feel like that's the best way to start off. And my son wants to play a wizard, or he wants to play a fighter. My daughter wants to play a wizard, so I'm going to pre-make their characters. There's some guidelines in her thing that I'm going to use to make the game a little simpler. And we're going to run with it and see how much they enjoy it. And then you get next section, higher education, ages 15 to 25. And that's mostly just, at rules as written. And then adults 25 to 65. And then the golden years, 65 and older, for retirees. I haven't run games for any of those, so I don't know how that works out. But she puts a lot into this essay about how to think about and how to approach each one of those groups. The next essay is Risk and Reversals, which is it's very good. I actually read it today. And it's all about how to implement risk and plot twist in your story so that it keeps everything interesting. Because if there is no risk, there really is no story. Players need to have a risk in the story to make it challenging, to make it worth adventuring. So I thought that was a really enjoyable read. And let's see, building your tribe, keeping your events together. There's a whole thing about how to turning ideas into swag, how to basically get your ideas and your adventures into print and into the hands of other people to play. Oh, that was really cool. The Long Game by Shane Hensley, which I will admit I have not read that part yet, so I'll have to get to that. Anecdotes, The Art of the Celebrity Con game. So playing with celebrities, which is something that most of us are never going to do. But also there's the whole thing about streaming. There's a whole thing in here about streaming your videos, because that's big now. When we used to do it a long time ago, honestly, back before most people did it, we were doing it, and nowhere near the quality that you see out there now. Then there's a whole section on house rules that I found really useful. Bennies. There's a neat house rule in here for called, I'm not sure if I'm saying his name right, Ringenbeck's D30, where you put a D30 on the table, which I happen to have, so I did, and I do it at every game, and each player, once per game session, is allowed to take that D30 and roll it and replace any die from their normal roll with the D30. So it could roll a 1 or it could roll a 30 and really explode on stuff. But it's just a little freebie to give your players. It was really cool. And my players have enjoyed using it when they remember to use it. Sometimes they get excited and they forget to use it. Then it ends with a section from Clint Black, Under the Hood. A lot of this is talking about adjusting rules, traits, races, edges, and so on and so forth. But it's each one of them is really about taking each one of these concepts and how to think about and how to approach each one of them, which I felt was very different than most Game Master guides out there. And I keep this on my side table here. It's something I grab all the time and just read something. Sometimes I read something 2 or 3 times. The one about the different age brackets, I've read a couple of times. I really liked it. So some of this does pertain specifically to Savage Worlds, especially with the house rules and so on and so forth. But there's a lot of it, especially like the world building section, the plot point section, how to approach, gaming with children, things like that. If that kind of stuff interests you, then I think you should pick this up. This is at $20. It's a really good deal. It's different than most Game Master guides, is all I can say. Like I've never seen one that was just basically a collection of essays and how to think about certain subjects. But it's been a really neat read, and for the most part, it's kind of system agnostic. It doesn't really, like I said, the house rules and stuff do pertain to Savage Worlds because that's what game it's tied to. But a lot of the stuff in here can be applied to any role-playing game, whether your game of choice is Dungeons and Dragons, or Pathfinder, or Warhammer, or whatever. Warhammer roleplay. But whatever your cup of tea is, I think it's a really good read, and I think you should give it a shot. Especially if you're the game master and you're wanting to, do a better job. For $20, you can't beat it. So that is all I've really got on that tonight. I'm definitely not going to do a video on the mini settings. I've talked about it as much as I can really say about it. It's not bad, but it's definitely not something that I would have went out and bought separately on my own. It just happened to come in the main box there. That's pretty much it for tonight. Good night and good luck.